Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast where we talk about real Canadian rugby. I'm Jack Hanratty, joined once again by Jeff Robinson. Jeff, we're recording on a Wednesday today. Normally we record on Tuesdays, but there was this big announcement in Australia that, I think we should have been paying attention to. Unfortunately for a lot of Canadians, it was in the wee hours of the morning. Anywhere between midnight and 5:30 a.m. depending on where you were. And this announcement was the official draw for the Men's Rugby World Cup in 2027 in Australia. That explains the time difference. So when you're waking up this morning, you're able to see the announcement of all the teams, all 24 of them that have been drawn. I think this is the first time that it's been done with all teams named instead of playoff winner or America's 1 and America's 2. So we're going to go through all the pools quickly and then we'll focus on the one that matters. So Pool A will feature the hosts Australia, South American returning team Chile, debutants Hong Kong, China, and the All Blacks of New Zealand. Pool B will feature the defending world champion South Africa and Italy, Georgia and Romania. Pool D will feature Ireland and Scotland, followed by Uruguay and Portugal. Pool E will have France, Japan, the USA and Samoa. And Pool F will have England, Wales, Tonga and returning team Zimbabwe. But the team we're really focused on is, of course, Canada, and they are in Pool C. And they'll be up against Argentina, Fiji, and Spain. Now, as it was pointed out, that because of the band structure that you use for the draw of the pools, Canada were in Band 4. Lowest ranked teams are all banded together. And then we have the next 6 higher ranked teams. They're Band 3. 7 to 12, they're in Band 2, and 1 to 6 are in Band 1. So this could have gone very badly for Canada. They could have been up against the Springboks. They could have been up against the 7th ranked team, which I believe is Scotland at this point. And and I think the 13th ranked team, which would have been the top of Band 3, is Uruguay. So this could have been a very bad draw. But I think with the teams we've got, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, we have seen 2 of these matchups already in the past year of Canada versus Spain and Canada versus Fiji. And Canada versus Argentina, we haven't seen in a number of years. But Canada have played Argentina 15 in the America's Rugby Championship within the last decade. And so looking at this, I'm saying it doesn't matter who was in Band 1. That's going to be the game too far. I think that's going to be a challenge, and it's going to be, can we score anything rather than are we going to win this game? Band 2, this is like a bit of a flexibility because, some teams, they can be really good on the day, but other teams, they can peak a little bit early, Ireland, and, the squad they bring to a World Cup may be the best they have, but not necessarily the best squad, if that makes sense. Band 3, this is always going to be the one which is going to be the closest to Canada in terms of rankings, and the most likely of games in which Canada can edge out a win. So we have Spain in Band 3 and we have Fiji in Band 2. Fiji, they're again one of these teams where they're either the greatest team in the world, they're bringing all the faces together, they're absolutely amazing to watch, or they are dropping the ball when they need to, pun intended, and not always where they need to be. Spain is definitely the target. As we've seen this year, Canada have been able to turn around previous misfortunes against Spain in 23 and 24. oh, sorry, 22 and 23, when Spain came over to Ottawa in 22, smashed Canada, and then shortly after the World Cup in 23, Spain hosted a few teams, including the USA and Canada, and Canada had the misfortune of taking on the host where they got smashed by Spain again. But obviously, we know what happened this summer, and Canada were able to, really hang with Spain and show them that, maybe they should have paid more attention to the Canadian setup. Obviously, it came down to the final kick where Spain emerged victorious. But, yeah, I think that's definitely going to be the focus for Stephen Meehan and the others. But what were your thoughts, Jeff?
All things being considered, I actually think Canada came out pretty well in the draw. As you already mentioned, Spain should have been a win this past summer. I can't remember how near full strength they were, but Canada wasn't near full strength either. So I guess it's a comparable game and a game that we should look at for what can be a future result. Fiji is one of those teams that's a bit of a Jekyll Hyde team, and that can be in the same game. But I'm not saying Canada's favored against either of them, and I don't think they would be probably in 2027 either. But Spain is definitely the game they should target, and Fiji, depending on the schedule for the pool stage will matter a lot to Canada's chances. It always will. Who gets the bad schedule? Who gets the favorable schedule? And if Fiji has to be in a position where they need to start more of their reserve to keep them fresh for Argentina, they may take that risk of trying to look past Canada and give Canada a slim chance of an upset there, but it would be a slim, unlikely chance. So Spain is definitely the one they should target. Argentina, as you mentioned, it's going to be that game, which is just going to be a game too far, and hopefully it's not their first game in the schedule.
Yeah, it is definitely hoping. So World Rugby have released the draw reactions from the Canadian head coach, Stephen Meehan, and the Canadian captain, Lucas Rumble. So Stephen Meehan was asked on being drawn with Argentina, Fiji, and Spain. He says, I think it's a good pool. It's full of different sorts of challenges. Every team wants to play, so all those teams are running rugby teams, and that's going to be a great experience for us. Some of the rugby that Argentina played in the middle of this year was outstanding, especially in some of their attacking play. We saw firsthand what Fiji are capable over the last few years, and we know that Spain can attack from deep in their own territory as well. He was also asked about his excitement of coaching in his first Rugby World Cup, saying he's extremely excited. I don't think it's a secret that we have not had our strongest squad over the course of this year, but the discussions I've had with players who haven't been a part of it yet are really positive thus far. So I expect there to be more competition for spots. The brand of rugby the other team play is similar to our philosophy, so I think it's a particularly exciting pool. As the names were drawn out, I wasn't unhappy about any of it. I thought it was great, and I think it's something to really look forward to. And then he was asked this interesting question on what Canada needs to focus on, which, is fair enough. Canada are the lowest ranked team, and they are obviously wanting to turn that around and go up a few places. And he said, we need to try and build some depth. If you have a look at what's happened with the age group of our players, we have a lot of experienced players like Lucas Rumble and players just finishing at university. There's a middle core off the back of the COVID years where we suffered from a lack of fixtures and didn't feel they had the opportunity, so went elsewhere. So we'll have 45 to 50 players knocking on the door and doing as well as they can to get on that plane. Yeah, I think this has always been the big concern, especially after Canada failed to qualify for the 2023 Rugby World Cup, is that a number of players made a decision that they can't afford to wait 4, 5, or in the case from qualification, 6 years to go to the next available Rugby World Cup. They need to focus on themselves, focus on family commitments or anything like that, focus on the paycheck. And for some people, that meant going overseas. For others, it meant leaving rugby altogether. And so there is a gap of players that are no longer playing. And we have to obviously focus on where the team is going to go from here. And I think there's a great opportunity for a lot of guys who, were playing in the Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship a couple of weeks ago for them to be like, I'm ready to step up. I'm ready to represent the national team on the global stage. So it is an interesting thought to think of. We also have more information from Lucas Rumble. He was asked about facing Spain after a narrow loss to them earlier this year, and he said, there's a familiar face. We've drawn them in the summer a few times. Great game, good back and forth, good attacking rugby. It gives us time to prepare our match. It gives us time to prepare to match our opponents in terms of their attacking structure. That Spain game will be a big target, and I'm looking forward to it. So it seems that not only are we on the same page, Jeff, but it's like Lucas Rumble is on the same page as us as well. So all thinking together. He says that he thinks that the new Rugby World Cup format is more exciting, more things can happen, different combinations, different games, adds a layer of excitement. He talks about playing in the 2019 World Cup in Japan and not qualifying for 2023, and he says it still hurts to this day. I think a lot of guys made a decision that day whether to hang it up or get back to it and make it to a World Cup, getting the team back to where they needed to be. So yeah, just what I was mentioning, a lot of guys decided that they couldn't afford to wait and hang up the boots, but I guess a lot of the guys are, now they've qualified, now who they know they're up against, they're redoubling their efforts.
Yeah. It's an interesting comment from me, and because that brings to something we discussed before about overseas guys who haven't played Canada yet or not for a long time. They may be coming back, which would definitely help the squad depth and definitely improve their chances. Because to be honest, don't get me wrong, again, Spain is going to be the favorite. Spain is right now the better team, but how much more can squad depth improve their overall starting 15 compared to Canada, who are some of the guys they're missing? They could bring. So it'll be very interesting, as I said before in the previous podcast. It's going to be very interesting to see, especially next November squad for Canada, because that's going to be should be the trial squad for the World Cup.
I think when we get to the Nations Cup, like the November games of the Nations Cup, as you said, that should be where Meehan is like saying, okay, if I can only take 32 players to Australia, then these are the guys that I need to be focusing on and need to be having. And I fully understand that there is going to be this conflict of interest of guys that are in Europe saying, right, if I come and play for Canada during this period, that impacts my wages from my European club. So, so I understand that as well. I personally hope that we can see some of the European-based guys come over for the July games in when first of all they'll be playing in Canada, so I think that'll be a big boost to have home support behind them as well. But I also think that's probably going to be the time when they're most available. So the
one or the other,
yeah. So, and but I also know injuries happen, or personal commitments or anything like that can get in the way. But I think there's going to be at minimum 9 opportunities for the men's team next year for players to be like, I deserve to be on that plane to Australia. So,
So one last thing before we move on after this, a non-Canada discussion, but which team would you think be most unhappy with the draw? Which team or teams?
that is a very good question. So,
Looking at it, I funnily enough think South Africa doesn't have, I mean, they're going to be battle hardened coming out of that pool. They're going to play 3 forward dominant teams. They'll win every game, but they could end up really battered and bruised.
yeah.
USA, Samoa, they don't have a great pool either. They probably in a bit of a worse pool than Canada, I would think, for their chances of getting a win. And although it'll come down to their game. But
Yeah. I think that probably the team that finds himself in the worst position is, it's always going to be like the lowest ranked team of any pool. So obviously you can say like, oh, Zimbabwe, they're going to have a
or
rough
Hong Kong,
time.
but I
Yeah,
mean,
Hong Kong, China, they're going to have a rough time. Portugal, mathematically, should have a rough time. I think Samoa and the USA, I think they're in a very tough spot.
yeah,
And at this point in time,
I think
I'm
Samoa's going to be much stronger.
yeah.
Probably
Um,
much stronger.
and
Mm.
I also imagine that next year we'll have the Pacific Nations Cup, and then we won't have it in 2027 because that'll be replaced by the Rugby World Cup warm up matches. So that won't be against opponents like Samoa, Fiji, Tonga. That'll be up against teams that you're unlikely to face in your pool. So it could be that Canada and Uruguay play a friendly to, get themselves warmed up. May even face some European opposition like Romania again. I think it would be advantageous for Canada before they go to Australia is to fly to Hong Kong and play Hong Kong China there to help acclimatize and help get them all set up before they fly out to where they need to be. That said, I think Hong Kong China have an amazing opportunity for them to get recognized on the world stage. Now, let me be absolutely clear. I do not think they are going to win a single game. The closest ranked opponent they have in their pool is Chile. And as we've seen from the last World Cup, Chile can produce some spectacular rugby. They have shown that they are committed to returning to the Rugby World Cup as they did after 2023. But this is going to be their Hong Kong's first opportunity to play Australia and New Zealand. And I think it's going to be an incredible chance for them
I was
to.
actually at the 2007 World Cup. I went to Portugal, New Zealand, and
Yeah.
I remember the interview with the Portuguese players. They're like, "This is our final,"
Yeah.
and yeah, and they lost like 105-7, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was still a great atmosphere in the stadium. Mhm.
Well, here's my World Cup story. Back in 2015, I had tickets to see New Zealand versus Namibia at the Olympic Stadium. And I was behind the post when the Namibian player scored a try, and the roar from the crowd was the loudest it had been the entire night. The Namibian fans, the neutral fans, and I'm pretty sure a few All Blacks fans were cheering that one along. That was incredible. But I agree. The notion of these smaller teams, especially in their World Cup debut, getting to play not only the hosts, but what the most iconic team in men's rugby as well. So, congratulations to them. I think it's going to be a battering of a score, but I think it's going to be an amazing opportunity for them.
Yeah, I just hope Century's not broken for either game, but
Yeah.
I honestly don't have high hopes.
Yeah, I can see Australia versus Hong Kong, China being like the World Cup opener just on the sheer notion of Australia want to start their games with a win. But the announcement of the schedule and for the Men's Rugby World Cup will be announced in the new year. But yeah, so Canada will face Argentina, Fiji, and Spain, and they have less than 2 years to prepare, but I'm sure they can get things started. Speaking of international play, there's also been an announcement that Sam Miller and Isaac Kelly have signed with SL Benfica in Portugal. So they were on the tour, and when the team was heading back, they were sticking around, going to Benfica and understanding where their new club was going to be. So congratulations to them on getting signed. Another and two big signings, a little bit closer to home, still international, is that Matt Oworu has signed with Chicago, as has Brock Webster. Now, this was a big story, especially to Free Jacks fans who were upset, to say the least, that Brock is crossing sides and playing for the Hounds instead of the Free Jacks. Yeah, I think, since making the switch from Sevens, I think a year or two ago, and joining the Free Jacks, I think Brock has taken to 15s like a duck to water. I think he's definitely been one of the fans players of last year, and I'm sure he'll continue to do well in Chicago. Jeff, what do you think of these big names for the Hounds?
Well, for the Hounds, I was honestly surprised to see Webster go to the Hounds, but congrats to him, congrats to the Hounds, and I fully understand the Free Jacks fans being upset. And for Ororu, I'm very happy that he is sticking around. Hopefully he's more of a starter this season. I would like to see that with like the old Canadian back row, Flesh, Rumble, and Ororu. I'd be very happy to see that. And for Miller and Kelly, I'm very actually happy that they're honestly going to Europe. Even in Portugal, it'd be a bit more of a forward type game. They're type five players. They need to get more game time. Hopefully, they get a lot of starts and can continue to help improve their play and reach that next level and improve Canada's depth in the type five overall.
Yeah, any forward now, and as you rightly put, the depth has been something that Stephen Meehan has been looking at, and so any opportunities for Canadian players to get it, we are more than welcome to see happen. Speaking of MLR as a whole, it's also been announced that the structure is going to be for the 2026 season. Not a lot of surprises. This has been rumoured for a while, but it's now been confirmed. This will be a 10-game regular season. So there'll be 5 home games and 5 away games. And then the top 4 teams will advance to the semi-finals. It'll be the first seed versus fourth and second seed versus third, with the winners of both going ahead for the MLR Championship final. Pretty basic, wouldn't you say, Jeff? But when you've lost so many teams in the off season, I guess you have to go back to basics. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and honestly, reading that gave me real Canadian Football League vibes with like every team makes the playoffs. But yeah, that kind of feeling. But I mean, it's the most logical. It's the most, you can't do just the top 2 teams go right to the final. You have to have a semis. So
Yeah, I and
this
also
situation, the most logical.
yeah, and also with losing so many teams, that means less eyes on the product because there's fewer games going on. So yeah, you have to have semi-finals and then go into the championship game. I think you can still build a bit of drama. Obviously, we'll see how things go with MLR 2026. But we have the structure in place. We don't have the dates just yet for which fixture it is. I think if it's like any other year, I think there's going to be... it's going to be 10 games, but over 12 rounds. I think there's going to be a few bye weeks for teams, and it'll be it's about a 3-month regular season and a 2-week postseason. So, like I said, simple, easy to understand. So we now move to sevens, and I have some bad news, folks. Some really bad, sad, tragic, heartbreaking news. And that is that Jack Hanratty, silver medal winning coach at the 2024 Olympics, has decided to destroy his Canadian passport, say that the maple syrup is better in Maine, and has announced that he is to become the head coach of the USA Women's Sevens team. I mean, the knife wound is still there in my back. It hurts so much. In all seriousness, I think that Jack has proved his acumen, bringing Canada into their highest position at the 2024 Olympics. This is going to be the LA game, so USA as hosts need to be able to bring the absolute best that they can. Still no confirmation if Alona Mayo is going to be in the 7 squad anytime soon, but if she's listening, and I'm sure she is, that recommend joining up with Jack as soon as possible and being able to get the gold is something that Jack is obviously going to be looking at. It's something that Americans obviously want to get at. And it's really hard to look at any other available coach and say, oh, they'll take you to the finals. I think Jack's proved his acumen. I mean, yeah, it's sad that he's going with the old enemy this time out, but ultimately, I think this is good for him. He's going to be based in Chula Vista in San Diego, so at least the weather will be better than Ottawa. And yeah, congratulations to him. Wish him all the best most of the time, unless he's playing Canada, in which case, forget everything, be the worst that you've ever been, and yeah. But again, Jack will not be starting until January of 2026, which means that Canada have had one round without Jack as head coach, and will have another this coming weekend. But we will first begin with the Sevens in Dubai. This is the new 2-day format that we have, and it's interesting. I think it does help, obviously, make the entire weekend flow a bit faster when you've only got 8 teams per gender as opposed to the 12. It also makes it pretty simple of if you finish in the top 2 in your pool, you advance to the gold medal match, and if you are in the bottom 2, then you advance to the 5th place final. So Canada started off really well, a 41-5 win over Great Britain. They then followed up with a 17-24 loss to Australia. As we mentioned on previous episodes, Australia and New Zealand still remain the teams to beat. And then a misconversion ultimately proved to be a downfall as Canada fell 19-21 to Japan, allowing Japan to score 2 converted tries in the final 2 minutes. Japan, admittedly, have come along pretty well. They eventually finished 4th in the championship playoff, but ultimately that meant that Canada was not able to advance to that stage as they finished 3rd in their pool, which meant they went to the 5th place playoff. So they were squared up first against France to then proceed to the 5th place match before they faced the old enemy of the USA, losing 14-19. That means that Canada have finished 6th in their first round of sevens for 2025 into 26. Jeff, what do you make of these results? I think that the result over Great Britain, that was predicted. Australia, I think that could have been predicted as well. But it seems that Japan have emerged out of, I don't want to say nowhere, they've obviously been in the sevens last year, but to get to this stage and were just able to get the attack against Canada right at the end.
Oh, he said 2 tries in 2 minutes. The defense is always concerning. It's also the first stop on the tour season. New squads. There's always a bit of rust, bit of new players coming in, and also I think a lot of the Canadian players did not join from the World Cup squad. So
no, the only player that has been able to join is Asia Hogan Rochester, who was obviously pretty big when it was the World Cup, but a lot of the other players, they're currently in club preparations for the PWR and the French League. So they are unavailable at the moment. They possibly could be available towards the end, including the Championship Series. But that is yet to be seen.
So it's the first round, I guess you could say maybe first round rust, hopefully. It'll be interesting to see about the next tournament, how they perform. That will be very telling.
Well, we'll be able to tell soon enough because the Cape Town Sevens are coming up this weekend. And if you want to watch Canada take on the teams that they will be facing down in South Africa, you can do so on TSN+. But that's not all of the rugby action that is happening this weekend. It is the return of the Champions and Challenge Cup. And as I discovered, this is not taking place on EPCR TV. It is going to be on Flow Rugby. They have the rights for the USA and Canada. And you might be saying, hey Stu, but I thought Flow Rugby was only available to people of the United States. To which I respond, yes. But they have the rights to Canada, so that's how it's going to be, unfortunately. If you want to watch that in Canada, it will be available on Flow Rugby. But if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out more, as well as our written pieces, on our website, rougerugby.ca. You can also find our podcast on Spotify and on YouTube. We're also available across social media, including Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky, all at the Rouge Rugby. Jeff, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on X at WP Rugby Jeff.
And you can find me across social media at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, that's where we're going to end this episode. Jeff, thank you for joining me, and thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Rouge Rugby Podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.